What is up? Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper weekend video, and today we are bringing back an old favorite of mine. This is Mono Black Devotion, with a mono red heavy metagame and very aggressive creature-based strategies. I wanted to give a board-centric control deck a chance. Mono Black Gardens obviously being quite good right now. But relying on things like Avenging Hunter to really close out the game using the initiative. This is a different take, using Grey Merchant of Asphodel to end the game with a big loss of life trigger. This is a deck that is very popular, or at least was very popular in the early days of Pauper, and I wanted to give it another chance. So I updated it a little bit, and we are going to run with this list into a league and see how it goes. At the end of the day, I'll take my thoughts here and make the next version. You can actually see it right over here, but we'll go over that at the end based on what I think did well in the deck versus what I think maybe has aged out as a staple in the deck. And we'll take a look as we go. So, without any further ado,
I suggest we play a little game I like to call Have You Met
Gary.
No, we're not playing Have You Met
Gary.
Hi, have you met
Gary. All right, we are going to go ahead and keep this hand. We have a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We've got 2 lands. We do need to draw, but we have a draw off of Suffocating Fumes. We have a 1 and a 2 drop with a cast down, so this seems like a perfectly safe hand to keep into most of the field as we go. We're just going to lead on a Fear of Losing Teeth. Opponent shows us an island. That could be a couple different things. It could be Mono Blue Terror. Consider into a Sneaky Snacker definitely makes me think that this is some sort of terror. But then we see Snuff Out and Modern Age, which is definitely not the standard build for Delver at this point in time. This is more likely to be like a Blue-Black Fae list, so this Kumbaj Witch is really gonna do work. We hit a couple of lands with an extra Gary. Not too bad. We have a Deadly, so if they do go for like a cast down or something on our Kumbaj Witch, we're able to follow that up. We are just going to get rid of this Vector Glider. We're going to keep pressure on, although it's not a ton of pressure. We top deck a Tithing Blade, which is annoying. We could have definitely used the Tithing Blade there and then followed with a Deadly. But they do have an Agony Warp to kill our Kumbaj, so at least we get to cash in that Agony, or the Deadly for some value there. They hit another Modern Age. That's fine. Lots of stuff in hand. We do need to hit a 5th land shortly, though. We hit a 3rd Grey Merchant, which is pretty nuts. We're definitely going to have a lot to do there. We're going to cash in the treasure token. Go for a Grey Merchant. They just have a Spell Stutter Sprite, so we did have Kumbaj Witch holding them hostage there a little bit. The Grey Merchant resolves, which is great. Nukes them down to 9. We're going to hit them down to 6, ideally, but they do have a blocker here. We're going to let them block. Doesn't take much from us in the at the end of the game, and reducing their ground forces definitely helps. There's that Vector Glider. We do have Crypt Rats here. They're going to Thorn of the Black Rose. Now, there are a couple avenues we could take here. We could definitely have just Crypt Rats for 3, but that does open the door to Agony Warp killing our Grey Merchant. So we elect to go for Snuff Out into Tithing Blade. They do have a counterspell to stop the Tithing Blade, which is rather annoying. We elect for Lembas here instead of keeping mana open for the Toxin Analysis and the Crypt Rats. Slight mistake. We do get a little bit punished for it. With this Suffocating Fumes taking the Crypt Rats out. We could have avoided that and definitely not been held hostage by this Thorn of the Black Rose. We do hit our 5th land finally, though, so we're just going to rip this Grey Merchant. Unfortunately, we still can't force 2 damage through because this Thorn of the Black Rose is still in our way. That Crypt Rats would have been the right play, so we definitely have to learn from that in the future. They're going to draw some extra cards from the Monarch, but we do know that they didn't have a counterspell, or they would have countered Grey Merchant, and they've only seen 1 card from this Monarch trigger that they didn't see off Brainstorm. So we're just going to rip this Grey Merchant, and they Brainstorm but don't find the answer, so the Grey Merchant is going to kill them. Let's head to game number 2. All right, game number 2 against Dykeall21. Sideboard plan. We don't have a ton to bring in, but we do take out the Snuff Outs. Realistically, they're not needed in this matchup. We definitely have some duresses to bring in against their counter spells, but that's not going to help against Spell Stutter Sprite, so it is fairly limited. We do see Agony Warp from them, though, so we know they have removal that is going to be relevant against us. So maybe it clears the way. Snuff Out seems largely dead against them, though, unless they have a very blue-heavy run-out, which didn't seem likely based on last game. So we're going to run it like this on the draw. This is an okay hand. Not the best hand, but it is fine. So we're going to run it like this. We hit a land drop, which is good for us. Could end of turn cycle here. So we're going to do that. We're going to find a Witch's Cottage just because it is perfectly fine as a tapped land if we don't need the effect. And if we do need the effect, it's very helpful. Opponent just going to straight up Bojuka Bog us off of our Troll, though. So that's a little annoying. We can Bojuka Bog away the first Sneaky Snacker, though, which is super helpful. We don't see them discard another one to the Vector Glider immediately, so that was likely the right line. We have a Not Dead After All, too, so if they do go for some sort of kill spell on the Kumbaj Witch like they did last time, we are able to sneak that through. They go for the Spell Stutter Sprite, but we just use the Kumbaj to kill the Spell Stutter. They have a second Vector Glider coming into play. And they do drop the Monarch. Now, that's going to be a bit of a problem here. We are not going to be able to get through. We're not going to be able to get through that very easily. We're just going to go for Chittering Rats. It's not taking the Monarch, but it is effectively undoing one Monarch trigger. So it's a very similar line, albeit not perfect. We go for the Tithing Blade. They do sacrifice the Vector Glider. And we're going to go ahead and swing in here to take the Monarch. They elect to just take out the Kumbaj Witch, which is fine. We don't Not Dead After All the Kumbaj Witch, even though it does hold their Spell Stutters at bay. And we elect to Kumbaj Witch this, or Not Dead After All this Chittering Rats. Was vulnerable to a Spell Stutter there, but they didn't have it, so that's good. And we put back an extra card, which is great. They take the Monarch and kill our creature. Not ideal. They're definitely going to hold on to that Monarch for a little while, which is not something you want to see in this type of a matchup. But we do get to duress their hand and then drop our own Monarch to steal that, knowing that their hand is free of removal is super helpful. We can take a look at those revealed cards. They showed us an Ambusher, Spell Stutter, and a Murmuring Mystic. Now, they could absolutely run out the Murmuring Mystic and we would have a problem, but we draw a Cast Down, which is pretty great. We're going to flip this Sepulcher just to slowly start to accumulate value in what looks to be a very slow middle game. They're going to go ahead and drop this Spell Stutter at end of turn. We're going to gamble against them not having another Spell Stutter, and they don't. So we can take that off. We'll take this island off. And now there's the Murmuring Mystic. So now we have to answer this Murmuring Mystic, but we know that they don't have any substantial spells in their hand unless they've top decked some. They do end up top decking a Spell Pierce, which is a little bit annoying. But now we can commit this Crypt Rats to the board. We're going to spend the Spinning Darkness to deal 3 to the Murmuring Mystic and then just wipe the board. We know that their hand, or at least we suspect their hand, is an Ambusher. But they've discarded that to the Modern Age, so all of their cards are unknown to us. They only have one card, and Spend It. It's a counter spell on our Unearth. Perfectly fine. They just let rip a Sneaky Snacker. Again, we do need to top deck a removal spell here if we want to win. We top deck a Thorn. Rather than just running out the Thorn, we go ahead and let them attack us to take the Monarch, and then we're just going to play the Thorn to take it back. It is a little bit gambly against a counterspell, but if they do have the counterspell for the Thorn, then we get to run out the Gray Merchant. And this is a good way to test for the counterspell. We're just going to lead on the Gray Merchant. They haven't considered digging for interaction. They're not going to find it. So Gray Merchant comes down, hits them, and we're going to lead on this Thorn of the Black Rose. And now we have our Monarch back. And they only have one creature in play. We hit a Tithing Blade, which is fantastic. It means that even if they attack and play a blocker, we're able to do something about it. But their top deck is a Lorien Revealed. And they have an Extract the Confession. We're going to go ahead and send the Thorn. Just keeping the 2/4 out and the double black pip seems correct. We've been shown Agony Warp, so there's no reason to keep a creature that could die to Agony Warp, plus double Black Pip is better for future Gray Merchants. We're just going to swing, take the Monarch back. We know this is Snuff Out safe and Spinning Darkness safe, so they have no way to cast, to kill that with 0 cards. 0 mana open, rather. And we're going to flip another Sepulchre, really start to put the heat on. Ambusher now is going to be their only out. We know one's in the graveyard. We don't know if they have second one in their deck. But they don't have a way to end this game in 1 turn. We're going to go ahead and Duress. They're going to play a Spell Stutter. Still don't have a way to end the game in 1 turn. And they've got a heal. So they're going to go ahead and block the Gray Merchant. Force block there. Could have resolved the Duress if we would have cast it after combat. But these Sepulchres are going to end the game if they don't find an Ambusher. They hit Lorien into a Brainstorm, but don't find the Ninja to swap for the Sneaky Snacker. So it is GG's to the opponent for the Mono Black Devotion deck. Not a bad showing. Definitely a grindy kind of control mirror match. That's not what we're here for, but it is nice to see that we can go the distance against a slower deck. Our next highlight match for you guys is going to be against Salowix. We win the die roll again, so we are on the play. Let's take a look at our starting 7. Unfortunately, this is not a keepable hand. 1 land off of being a keepable hand with double troll, but that is the risk we run for having a 19-land deck. This, however, is a perfectly keepable 6, so we're going to run that. We do need to cycle this troll, but we top deck a land rather than cycle the troll. Definitely a misclick on priority pass there at end of turn, but we're just going to cycle the troll now on turn 2. We didn't have any play anyway. We'll develop a Chittering Rats. We have lots of removal in hand. We do need a Toxin Analysis to go with this Crypt Rats. The opponent shows us a mountain, so we know that they're on either Eldrazi Monsters or Eldrazi Ponza. Leading with a Repurposer doesn't narrow things down totally, but it does give us a good idea that they're probably on monsters. Going into a Writhing Chrysalis, unfortunately, still doesn't narrow down which of the 2 decks they're on. The deck Ponza ran 1 Repurposer and 4 Chrysalis, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that they're on Ponza, but Ponza's fallen off pretty hard lately. We are going to whiff the ramp here. We're going to willfully pop this Crypt Rats for 1. We're going to put the Chrysalis too high to kill with the Devile, which is very annoying. But we are going to prevent them from ramping. And I felt that was pretty important because they would have had 4 extra mana on their turn and certainly could have been super explosive. We top deck a non-conditional removal, so we're going to spend that Tithing Blade on the Chrysalis. Tithing Blades are very good in this deck and have proven to be very good. That's something I like to talk about in the future variations of this deck. They do lead on an Avenging Hunter, which is super annoying because they're going to start the initiative. We're down to 13 here. 4 cards in hand for the opponent. We're definitely running out of resources. We hit a land, which is not what we were looking for. We're just going to go for a Gray Merchant and pass. Hopefully the opponent doesn't have a creature in... Hopefully the opponent doesn't have a creature in hand, but that seems rather unlikely. They do just lead on a Boarding Party and hit a Utopia Sprawl, so at least we get a little bit of luck on the Cascade trigger, but they can swing for 7. We have to take it. Hit an Arms of Hadar, which isn't exactly what we're looking for. We're going to flip this Sepulchre and just pass. Nothing else to do with our mana at that point, so just kind of spend it. Really looking for a way to give Death Touch or kill this 7/6, and we don't hit either, so we're forced to block out so we don't die. Opponent has an Altasaur. This game's pretty much over. There's not any 1 card we can top deck, but we'll see what it is anyway, just in case. And it's a Crypt Rats, but unfortunately we are not able to wipe the board big enough. So we're going to go ahead and scoop it up and head to game number 2. We're on the play in game number 2 against our red-green opponent here. Sideboard here is fairly uncomplicated. We took out the Tithing Blades. They're just not going to be good enough against a whole bunch of Eldrazi spawns. Other than that, not a ton to talk about. We don't have a whole lot of options against that deck. We took out the Tithing Blades. We took out the Fear of Lost Teeth. We're just going to run it and kind of see where we end up. hopefully we're able to stabilize the board pretty early and avoid getting ramped out here. That's kind of the game plan against Monsters. Monsters is, I think, a tough matchup because our spot removal is good but not great, especially against their Cascade threats, and our board wipers are not typically good enough against huge dudes unless we have exactly the Toxin Analysis to go with our Crypt Rats. And our Sacrifice Outlets aren't good enough either because they have a whole bunch of spawns. So this is just not the ideal matchup for this deck, but we're going to run it and see how it goes. We do have Len-Boss into Deadly Dispute, so we at least have a whole lot of draws available to us. Top decking another Len-Boss is not ideal, but we are going to keep this Troll just so we guarantee our 5 mana drops that we usually need to win the game. Opponent goes Malevolent Rumble into a Relic. Relic isn't going to be super relevant against us in this game. We're not really going to be doing much. The Witch's Cottage is annoying to lose, but at the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal. It is just a land at this point now, and that's fine. Opponent leads on a Jewel Thief. We're not super happy about that, but we do know they got it from the Malevolent Rumble, so we're going to go ahead and Chittering Rats them. And then we'll crack a treasure to get this Len-Boss. We're going to draw the Suffocating Fumes just in case they do go Chrysalis. We want to be able to Suffocating Fumes away all of the spawns. Unfortunately, they have a boarding party, which is not the ideal option here. Now, we have a choice at this point to pop the Crypt Rats or Suffocating Fumes to kill the Arbor Elf. I suppose we could cast it down, but that seems unwise. So we just pass the turn and hope that they don't have something that can maximize this Arbor Elf. Unfortunately, they do have another big drop that they get off of the Arbor Elf. They have a Nylea's Forerunner, which gives all their other creatures trample. Definitely makes that block less than ideal. We are able to trade off with the 6/3 using the Suffocating Fumes. We have a Crypt Rats. We can pop it for 3, which nukes the board. We are going to just pass with the Crypt Rats up to dissuade them from attacking with, like, another boarding party, something like that. That way, at least if they do have a boarding party, we're safe from it. Unfortunately, they have an Avenging Hunter, which is very annoying against the initiative because we're not going to be able to take it next turn. We do Chainer's Edict, the Avenger, and we follow up with a Chittering Rats. Now, this line is a little bit interesting because it makes it so that if they want to go towards the trap, they have to pump our own Chittering Rats. And we do have a removal spell in the wings waiting to try to break through. So if we can get the initiative, we might be all right. Unfortunately, boarding party is not what we wanted to see. An Avenging Hunter just means we're dead to the trap trigger on the spot. So the opponent did their thing, played well. The deck just really didn't keep up, unfortunately. So didn't see what we were after, didn't get to play Have You Met Gary? And that's just not a winning combination for a Mono Black Devotion deck. So let's hop back to the Decktech and take a look and see what we think worked and what we didn't. All right, now the results for that league were actually 2 and 3, not what we were hoping for. We won against a mono-white heroic deck and against the blue-black Fae deck that you guys saw. We lost against a Rakdos deck that just barely squeaked it out. We didn't have enough life gain with our Len-Bosses to try to out-sustain them. We did lose to a mono-red deck. Unfortunately, that one was mostly on player error. I mistakenly mulliganed a good hand and definitely got punished for it. And then there was one turn with holding priority on Crypt Rats for a Deadly Dispute that hosed me. Didn't actually pay for the Crypt Rats ability and used the mana to the Deadly Dispute instead, so the Crypt Rats ended up going off for 0. Super annoying. That was just a skill issue with the MTGO interface. That's on me. Definitely should have won that match against Mono Red, but ended up going 2 and 3 overall. Now, what worked and what didn't in this deck is fairly interesting. The Fear of Lost Teeth definitely held it down against Red, same with the Kumbaj Witches, so do appreciate those. Kumbaj Witches a little less so than it used to against Mono Red, admittedly, just because they have a lot of 2/2s at this point in time. The Arms of Hadar and the Suffocating Fumes were both primo against mono red. Thorn of the Black Rose was bad against mono red, but it was good against the control decks. Those Monarch battles were really, really important in winning that matchup that you guys saw. Spinning Darkness did very well anytime that it was castable, although there was one match where the non-black part was a little annoying, so maybe a third cast down could have been better there. All told, the deck participated and was playing games. It didn't feel like I was ever fully out of it, except that Eldrazi Monsters matchup. That one definitely felt rough. So this is the newest version of the deck that I will be playing in my spare time. Next week we have a new deck for you, so I'm not going to play the same archetype twice in a row. But we did do a little bit of changing and shuffling things around. We got rid of that one of Deadly. It just wasn't consistent enough, and we got rid of the Tithing Blades for Accursed Marauders. And I think Accursed Marauder is definitely going to help in the Eldrazi Monsters. It definitely makes you sacrifice a non-token creature, which can be relevant, especially against those pesky Writhing Chrysalises. Unfortunately, still doesn't get you through like the Arbor Elves and other things like that. But we are trying to commit a little bit harder to the Crypt Rats package. We took out the Toxin analysis in favor of a new card, which is pretty interesting that I think you guys are going to like. We are playing the new Black Room Diuretic Addict. Now, on its face, this is just simply a draw 2, lose 2 for 3 mana, but you can pay the 4 mana. And it says, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 and Death Touch. And that is going to be really interesting to see with these Crypt Rats, because it allows us to commit to the Crypt Rat boom a little bit easier and pretty consistently give creatures that wouldn't otherwise be threatening Death Touch, which is super helpful in those longer, more grindy mid-games that this deck tends to get itself into. This will also help a little bit with getting gassed out in terms of draw. The Lembas plus the Diuretic Addict should do some help there. And then the Singleton Candy Trail. This is really just to help smooth out kind of awkward 7s. Not a ton of changes in the main board or the sideboard, really. The sideboard is just a testing sideboard, so it's exactly the same as the last deck. But this version of the deck does seem like it has a little more gas in the tank. I do like the Accursed Marauder, although I don't like that it isn't a black pip to stick around, but we gain 2 of those in the Diuretic Addict and Widow's Walk, which is helpful for these Gary triggers. So that's it for me this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching along. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, good luck in your leagues. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. As always, it just helps the algorithm, helps the channel grow. Share this with a Pauper fan in your life. Hopefully they get some value out of it if you want to help the channel even more. And as usual, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye forever, unless I see you next time.